Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Tampa Bay Real Producers Podcast. This, of course, is the podcast that is made for real producers, by real producers, and with none other than Tampa Bay's real producers, as well as powered by Top Producers Nation, which is a community for real estate agents desiring to become top producers in their desired markets. We can help you do that online through our online resources, as well as through our course that we have online for you, and other programs, including coaching, group, and individual coaching as well. So you can find that at topproducersnation.com, and feel free to check that out if you feel like you need some assistance in helping you grow your business. We have one of my favorites in the market here today. Kendall Bonner is joining us. Hi, Kendall. How are you?
Hi.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. This is an honor and a pleasure to be here. And
no doubt.
It's this is a iconic thing that you have going on. So I love it.
I appreciate that. I don't know how iconic it is, but we have fun with it. That's for sure.
It is.
Kendall, we go back, I feel like, a few years now, because we featured Kendall in one of our first issues, actually, of Tampa Bay Real Producers way back in 2019. Can you believe it's been that long ago already that we got this whole thing started?
With everything that's happened in my life, yes.
I guess that's true too. Yes. What was that? 5 years ago, 6 years ago now already that we got it launched. And Kendall and her team at the time was one of the first things that we did as far as the first team spotlights. We've also had Kendall as a panelist on I think a couple of our panels now over the years, and sharing her insights. So for people who might not know a ton yet about your story and all that stuff, why don't we start there with just a little bit about your background. Did you grow up in Tampa? If not, how you got here, and eventually how you got yourself interested in real estate?
Okay, and I will do my best to make this short and concise of a story. But I'm born and raised in California, Los Angeles. And how I ended up here was my mother, when I was in high school, I told her I wanted to be a teacher. And she said, no, think again. They don't make any money. And so she said, JD, MD, PhD, pick one. And my mom was an MD, a doctor. And so I knew what that life was like, and I was like, I don't want that life. So I thought it was like, well, I'm going to outsmart my mother. I'm going to be a professor. But I when I was in college, I did this program that had me in graduate school while in college. And I realized that to get a PhD was going to be, I wasn't mature enough, I felt. So I was like, I'll go to law school in the meantime.
Nice.
So I went to law school in Los Angeles. I went to Loyola in downtown LA.
Okay.
And I got a scholarship there, so that made it an easy choice. And I met my husband the summer before I graduated. And what happened was, my joke in law school was, I'm just here for my MRS degree. Mm-hmm. And I was just kidding, but I had no intention of taking the California bar, so I didn't register or anything. And I'll never forget, so I asked my husband out on our first date. And we are dating, and about 6 months in.
So you took the initiative, huh?
You know, there's a whole story behind this, too. There's a good lesson.
I'm sure he loves when that story's told, yes.
Oh, he knows it. We joke about it all the time. But about midway through, and so we met and dated in that June summer school class negotiations, in fact. Mm-hmm. And November, he asked me, he says, I'm thinking about moving back to Tampa. And he's like, would you, move with me? And I said, not as your girlfriend. And he's like, well,
that's the way to apply the right pressure. I get it.
And then he said, well, what if I asked you to marry me? And I said, well, that's a different story. So that December, right after Christmas, I flew out to Tampa, met his friends, met his mom. No, I'd already met his mom at that point. But this is like literally 6 months after.
Was he from Tampa?
Yes.
Okay.
After we met. And so it was in Tampa, he proposed. Mm-hmm. And then in May, 11 months later, we are married on Saturday, graduated law school on Sunday. And then on Tuesday, we're driving to Tampa.
Very cool.
And so we took the Florida bar here. That was in 2003. So 21 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And so we both passed the bar. We both started working. And then
we're in the same firm?
Never.
Okay.
No, well, I take that back. We owned our own firm together at some point. That was later. But I say never. That's not true. In the beginning, definitely no. He was in personal injury. He actually worked for Steve Yared, who's a local power attorney.
I know the name, yep.
Here in Tampa. And I was a public defender. And I worked in Clearwater. And then I worked in Dade City. And then I ended up doing workers' comp insurance defense for a couple of years. Traveled all over the state of Florida. And then at was during that time my husband started his own bankruptcy law firm here in Tampa. And then we both, and then I eventually joined him doing that, and it was B&B Law Group. So we did work together. We co-owned it together. And then it was during that time that I got bored and got into real estate.
So the law thing just wasn't for you after a while, huh? You were like, this is just too boring, or what?
Yeah, like I said, it was never my passion or what I wanted to do. It was something I was skilled at. I knew how to do. I was good at it. I mean, I have some good funny trial stories and stuff from back in my day doing trial work. And I've done trial work, depositions, picked juries, mediations, like probably the state court. I did bankruptcy, so that was that's federal. The only thing I really never got into was appellate work and stuff. That was not
nothing
really
in
my
real
jam.
estate law.
No,
Okay.
I mean, I did do title because I don't count that as real estate law, but just because it wasn't trial work at all. But I did closings for a little while, like after I got into real estate. But I was already a realtor at that point.
So what caused that real estate attraction? Was there something that you always thought you'd get into with real estate, or was there a reason why you ended up, choosing to get your license? Yeah.
So Bill and I think we're buying our second or third house. It must have been our second house. And I thought I'd like looking at houses. And really, when you're shopping new construction, that's fun, right? Pretty houses, new houses. That was fun. And I thought,
to pick all your details and exactly the way you want it.
Yeah. So when we were buying the second house, it piqued an interest. And then shortly after that, in 2011, and actually what happened was, that was in 2009. 2011 happened, and my mother had gotten sick, and she had moved with us back in 2009. So that totally derailed any plans that I had to get my license. But through that experience with my mom getting sick and coming to Florida to live with us and near us so I could take care of her, it taught me that, because my mom had dementia. And she was really, we found out later because I donated her brain to Harvard. She had Alzheimer's in her 50s, which is really, really young. And all the lessons I learned from that experience, which included why wait? What are you waiting for? Right. Live your best life. You're not promised for tomorrow, all those good things. And so I got my real estate license for fun. I thought I would do it part-time. I was sorely mistaken. It took me 30 days to figure out this is a full-time career. Yep. Came back and told my husband, because I went to every training that brokerage had to offer as soon as I got my license. And I came back to my husband and said, I'm not taking any more bankruptcy clients. I'm going to be a realtor. And he was like, what? I think it took him 6 years to forgive me because he felt totally abandoned.
So he wasn't quite sure the route you were taking there at first, it sounds like.
He was not happy with me about that. Okay. But I mean, he supports, but I know he felt little you abandoned me. Probably he feels like right now.
You knew though within those first 30 days that this was something you wanted to commit to.
Yeah. I fell in love with it too. Especially that first 6 months into the business, and it was short sale market, right? 2011. I found something that I was really good at. I found, because with bankruptcy, it was eat what you kill. If you don't kill, you don't eat, right? I had 1 hour to meet with a stranger and convince them after an hour to feel like they knew me, liked me, trusted me, and that they would write me a check and hire me. Guess what that equated to? The skill set I need to be a listing agent. And that's exactly what I did. As soon as I got into real estate, I was a listing agent. I didn't even know how to work with a buyer.
You didn't even go down the buyer's route at first, huh?
I didn't know how to work with a buyer for about a year and a half.
Wow.
After being a realtor.
Not the path that most new agents take.
No, in fact, I would not work with a buyer. I would give my buyer leads away. I was like, I'm here to, I just saw my business very differently. Sure. And it took me a long time to understand like I said, I thought I liked looking at houses. I really didn't. Yeah. But I ended up building a really
Do you think you liked that negotiation part of the listing appointment, and what you obviously had some negotiation skills from going all the way back to the class you took in school?
Yes.
But then even, of course, as a lawyer. So is that where some of that, interest came from?
To this day, my current job, I get to negotiate. So yes, absolutely. Negotiations is a fun skill.
That's where the shark comes out.
Right.
Yeah, you might have that baby face, but that's where the shark comes out, right, Kendall? So cool. So you had, do you remember what that first year looked like for you in terms of results? How many deals you had or any numbers that come to mind?
I remember, so at that brokerage, I remember I did enough business because that brokerage had a rolling split, and it started at 55, 45. And I was able within about 3 months to negotiate an 80-20, which at that time was the best split that they could offer.
Nice.
And I probably did 6 figures my first year, but it was hard because it was short sales, so like I just had to
be
take
patient.
listings and then work them. And it wasn't until probably 2013, 14 that I started to take more traditional listings.
Interesting.
But those first 2 years, it was a lot.
A lot of working with the banks and just trying to work out the numbers, and there's a lot of patience involved when you're dealing with the banks. I'm familiar with that a little bit. Yeah. No doubt.
It was tough.
So at some point in your journey in real estate, did you know from the get-go that you wanted to focus on team building and start building an organization? Because that's when we met, you were a team. You had a team established by that point. You had a brokerage by then.
Yeah.
So was that always part of the journey, or did that evolve down the road?
Yeah. So actually, funny story. I started a team before my brokerage back when I was at Keller Williams at that time. So, and it was out of trying to create leverage because I had all these listings and I had no time for buyers. And really it was my sellers that were turning into buyers that I needed someone to help me with. And so the sales manager there hooked me up with a buyer's agent, and we worked really well together for about a year. And then I broke the team up, and she might even hear this because she's still in the biz and she's a top leader producer in her own right to this day. But I broke us up because I thought I was a terrible team leader, and I didn't know how to grow it. I didn't know how to, expand beyond what I was doing, and I knew I wanted more leverage. So I opened a brokerage in 2014, which I and started as an agent of one. So I split up the team at that point, broke up the team.
You were licensed for about 3 years prior to that,
right?
Okay.
And then I got recruited to open a brokerage, started that from 0 or 1, and then I grew that to, I think at the height, probably in 2019, I got it to almost 60 agents. We had done over 200 million in volume. I had a bunch of teams in there. I had leveraged myself out of real estate, so I wasn't selling anymore at that time. I was just an entrepreneur. And
was that also part of the goal too when you started going down this road of team building to get out of production? Was that part of the plan? Or I know some people really struggle with that, right? Like whether to even want to get out of production, is it the right thing to get out of production, or to you, was that definitely the path?
You know what? I would say it wasn't my intention. I was coached out of it. My coach at the time said, you cannot be a great broker or leader if you are in the trenches the way that, I had been, and most top producers are. So it was like, hey, you have to make a choice. Do you want to be a top producer, or do you want to be a leader? Do you want to be an entrepreneur or grow a business? And so that was part of my transition. And then I really fell in love with helping agents build their businesses, you know, that teacher side that came back and was like, here's how it's going to manifest itself into your current career. And so I really fell in love with that. And honestly, I didn't start my team that we have today, which I actually recognize as a real team compared to before, was 3 years ago, actually. And I was inspired because I felt this connection as a broker owner, and I had teams in my company, some great ones that are now their own brokerage and also that have, flourished in other ways. I realized that I knew some of their challenges, but I didn't know all of them because I could understand the working on the business piece, but I was missing some of the crucial pieces, I think, that come with teams in particular. And so I was inspired. I was like, you know what, maybe I'll start a team so I could learn. And then once you build your own team.
So you didn't really view your brokerage as a team?
I didn't.
Interesting.
I had a bunch of independent agents and teams within the brokerage. It was definitely community for sure. It was definitely... we called it a family, back then. And I've learned a lot.
What do you think is the biggest distinction between, because I think that's an interesting distinction you just brought up, right? And some people who are out there who are currently brokers or thinking that they're team builders, but maybe they're operating under a premise that you were as well, in those earlier days. So you were mentioning you just learned a lot. Like, is there a particular distinction that you feel like now looking back, you can pinpoint as to why you didn't feel like that was the team that you now feel like you have today?
Yeah. And I think part of it is it's just definitions, right? And semantics probably at the end of the day. But, you know, the difference between what I had as a brokerage versus the team that exists now is the depth of connectivity, leadership, the financial connectivity and tissue as well. Like, you know, when I was running my brokerage, the opportunities that we built, you know, a lot of it was designed to support independent agents who are running their own business. The splits were different. You know, they're definitely more in favor of the agent, but also the agents was able to do the.
Is that a note, Rob? My eyes are bad. I can't see that. Somebody's saying "Go Kendall" on live, so God bless whoever that might be.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can just throw them out, man.
Yeah.
It's all right. We're very casual here, so whoever wants to
Thanks,
say
Lance.
"Throw Kendall a little love," it's all good. Yes, no worries.
Yeah. So, you know, so it was just when I started my team though, and I started talking to other team leaders who are running like what I would call a production team, where, you know, the responsibilities are around lead generation, marketing, branding, like more intense coaching, providing services, really at a much higher level than a traditional brokerage model.
Yep.
I think that was part of the big distinction. It was
That makes
just
sense.
the
More ownership.
And the expectations were higher, right?
Yeah.
Like on my brokerage, the agents that we had at the brokerage, their expectations were here. Like the team expectations are way over here, you know, the team members and what you're selling is different, right? The service, the benefits, all of that, it's just different.
When you felt like you made that adjustment to more of like a team model, in your words, was it still a brokerage technically?
So it was separate so I had a team within my brokerage. So I still had the brokerage at that time.
And then you also had your own team inside.
But I developed a team. And the reason I started the team was not only was I inspired so I could learn, but two main reasons. One, I felt like I had gained this knowledge around lead generation and marketing and branding, and I wanted to test it. And number two, I wanted to help like brand new agents or underperforming agents have a real chance at succeeding in this business. Because this thing I had learned as a broker is that agents, when you're new, like it's really hard to get going and get set up in real estate and get successful.
Especially on your own.
And like a lot of agents think they need mentorship. And I'm like, you're not ready for a mentor. You don't need a mentor and you don't need a coach. You need a trainer.
Yeah.
Like you need someone who's going to invest in you because you need leads. Like it's one thing for me to teach you, but if you don't have leads to practice on, it's by the time you get that first opportunity, that first buyer, that first seller, whatever it is you're working on, you have forgotten everything we've taught you. If I can't simultaneously get you at bats at the same time. And that was a beautiful thing of a team, is that I was set up to be able to do that. Like, hey, I can teach you and I'm going to give you opportunities at the same time so that you can actually practice what you're learning.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
That's not typical in most brokerages, right?
Give one nugget out there as far as your favorite way to lead gen?
My favorite way to lead gen. So it's probably not what you would think, because how I started my business and my team was very different than most teams start. Number one, I wasn't the rainmaker in terms of I wasn't out there in the living room. But I would say I went in on all things Google. So that meant Google reviews. We have over 600 5-star Google reviews. That actually really matters in terms of lead conversion, at least, and generation, because people will Google you and wonder, like, what can I learn about you? And, you know, my coach, my last coach, John Cheplak, used to say, allow people to experience you and working with you before they actually hire you, right? Like, give them that experience. So definitely going all in on reviews. We went all in on pay-per-click and SEO. And those are really powerful tools for us.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So there was obviously having an allocated budget put aside so you can invest the right way, right, into those different programs, because for an agent who's brand new, who might not have that budget yet, it goes back to what you said earlier, partnering up with somebody who can invest in them, right?
Yes.
And try to help them get off the ground until maybe they can do it themselves.
Yeah, I know a lot of people think that social media is the way to go, and I would say no, not really.
Why do you say that?
Not
It just takes too long?
One, most agents when you're talking about social media marketing and lead generation, if you're not putting money behind it and you're not actively growing it, i.e. if you're not adding 100 to 200 new contacts and followers on a regular basis, and when I say regular, I mean probably you need to do that on a weekly to monthly basis, right? Hundreds of new connections, and you're not connecting with people online, and you're just posting, because most people think of social media as just a post.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, but if no one sees your content,
right.
You're not gonna
engagement.
you're not gonna engage. So, I think that if you're gonna leverage social media, there's real strategies out there that work, but they're not free.
Yeah. No, it's a great
Both
point.
in time, money,
and
or
there's
energy.
a big difference between true lead gen and branding. Right,
Yes.
because social media really is branding, and it's powerful when done right, as you said. But it isn't true lead gen the way that you're describing.
It's social proof,
right?
I mean, it gets to validate you, right? Just like your website will validate you in the eyes of consumer.
Totally.
But it's not really lead gen to me.
And I love that because I'm a big believer in, and no matter what business you're in, obviously we're talking about real estate right now, but the idea of eventually getting to a point where you can create marketing automation, right, in your business model, because that's where the desired lifestyle tends to come in, right? Because people become an agent because they feel like they're going to be able to live this amazing lifestyle and, not have to work, of course, which we know isn't true, but if they want that great lifestyle, a lot of it has to be through being able to utilize leverage and marketing automation, which starts with some sort of lead gen flow, right? That's going to be consistent. And whether that's through Google or any of the other programs you mentioned or others, there's more than one way to do that. That's out there. I wanted to ask you about, so in my years, I guess, of admiring you from afar, from a business sense and in your leadership capabilities, I know that it feels like for me, pulled in a lot of different directions because you're constantly traveling, like speaking at this conference or at this event or at this thing. Talk a little bit about like that, like your role in these different leadership events and councils and stuff that I feel like I've seen you be a part of a lot, right, over the years. What role has that played? Why has that been important to you? Did these opportunities just kind of open up as you started generating more volume, or was that intentional? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a good question because I get asked this a lot, especially by a lot of other, I'll say even female speakers who want to be on the speaker circuit or things of that nature. And they'll ask me like, how did you do it? How'd you get started? And it's funny for me because that was not the intention ever for that piece. And I've done a lot of things intentionally. This was not one of them. And what happened, I think, in my journey was, again, back to that teacher, that passion for teaching and training and educating and just kind of that give back in me. I started doing video, which is how I think originally got known by a lot of people. I was doing #Wednesdays, Improve Your Hustle, and I would post a video on social media every single week.
Was YouTube channel your jam or
no? Never
Facebook
YouTube. It was Facebook back then. Because remember, this was 2017, 18, 19.
Yeah. Now you don't get any contact on videos unless you're paying for it, right? To your point earlier.
Yeah, it's really changed. That's why I said like it's a little late in the game on social media. But anyway, so I was doing these videos, and then because of that, people would see me. I would show up in their algorithm, and then I would get invited. Like my brand at the time was Remax. They would, they knew I had this passion for teaching, so they asked me to teach classes. How do you do these videos, for example, right? And so then I started getting on stages within my brand, and that was very nerve-wracking. But then I realized, like, I'm the type of person, lesson from this was, if I'm afraid of it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Get out of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah. I believe there's no courage or bravery without fear, right? So I'm like, how can I be brave or courageous if I'm, not afraid to do something? So let's do it anyway. That's where the growth is, right? So I started doing that. And then what opened up for me was in 2020, I was asked to speak at Inman on a panel on Tech Connect, right? So I'd gotten known as this techie, and I'm a self-proclaimed nerd. And I did this panel, and it went really well. And my co-panelist was, I think his name is like Jason Cohn or something. I forget what city. He's in another state, and that was in New York. And that must have gone well because the pandemic happened, like March happened.
Yep.
And then in May, Inman started doing virtuals. They started doing online video content. And so they had me back as another panelist on something. And then again in September. And then they started doing these monthly Connect Nows. And after that third one, they said, hey, would you mind being a MC for our half-day events? And I'm like, sure, that sounds cool. So I started emceeing.
Another thing you were afraid of that you were like, okay.
I was like, yeah, totally.
Time to say yes to something else.
Exactly. And at this point I'd done some podcasts and things like of that nature. So I was like, I could do this, I guess. And then they started going to, then they asked me to moderate panels. And so I did that. I've been at actually every single in-person Inman event since 2020, except for Miami this year. What
does Inman stand for?
It doesn't stand for anything.
Okay.
It's Brad Inman. So Inman News.
Gotcha.
It's I like to joke that between Inman, RAS Media, and Housing Wire, those are the three. That's like Fox, MSNBC, and CNN of the news for real estate.
Gotcha.
And so as a result of that, that really opened up a lot of doors. And then I started doing work for RAS Media, both being interviewed. I started writing for Inman, being a contributor, do video content for them, help host events.
Did you find that helped your business too, your local real estate business?
I don't know that it had an impact on. If it did, it would be because, like, on my website, you go look at my Meet Me page.
Right.
Like, I have a list of
proof
all.
there.
Yeah, it's like social proof of like all the things I've done. Like, I'm a leader in the industry, and I think that probably is impressive for a consumer to get in there and see, like, hey, if I'm going to work with someone, I want to work with the person who teaches the people, right? And then, but yeah, it definitely helped with like referrals and relationships.
Makes
and
sense.
Things of that.
Did you ever find it challenging to run and grow your, all the operations of your real estate business, but then still have these other things that you also were embracing and taking on, like balancing all of that? Was that ever a challenge for you?
I think building a business is always a challenge. The advantage I had is I never had to do it alone. So I was never alone in any of my businesses like this. Like, so when I started the brokerage in 2014, one of the first things I did was I hired a branch manager who helped me build, and my husband came and helped because he's very operational.
He finally got out of the law side, huh? You said, all right, you've proven to me this is going to work.
Yes, basically.
I'm in.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. And he's come kicking and screaming, but he's here now and he loves it. So he loves owning a business. And so now he runs the Kendall Bonner team, and I jokingly say they pay me to license my name and image, but he runs it and he does a really good job.
Yeah, we were going to talk about that too, because you've kind of transitioned out now of running your team, and your husband is really handling a lot of the operation and I guess everything, right? Recruiting, sales, like he's responsible for all that. So where have your attention has gone now? What are you focused on now? I know we talked a little bit off camera about some of the new roles that you have. Why don't we touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so in 2023, I sold my brokerage and I transitioned my team to eXp Realty. And I had been there for about, we'll say 6 months before I realized, like, not that I don't love my team because they're amazing, amazing humans, but I just realized, like, my passion wasn't in entrepreneurship so much as leadership. And it sounds nuanced to some people, but there really is a difference between being an entrepreneur and a business owner versus being a leader in those roles and responsibilities.
I can definitely recognize the differences for sure.
And so I started to, my husband and I actually were starting to not be, I won't say we were on the same page, but it was more like, because we lived in two different worlds. I was sales, he was operations. And I just felt like we worked together, we lived together, and I don't want to battle at home or at work. So I'm just going to let you do it, right? And so I just started to pull away so that he could actualize his vision that he had for the team, because he had a vision. That the team was always his passion. It was something he had been trying to get me to do for years and years and years, and I kept saying, no, I'm not a team leader. I had all these like doubts and hesitations about doing it. So I didn't want to do it for a long, long, long time. It was always his dream in my mind. So starting it, I was really proving a point. And I felt like after a couple of years, I proved my point. I was like, oh, I could do this. And I did it. Because in 2 years, we started from zero and we got to $80 million in volume and over 200 sides. And I didn't sell any houses. It was all my team and brand new agents and new licensees and, and underperforming agents. And I'm really proud of that we were able to do that and change lives, right? Like my team has changed some people's lives. But then this year, what happened was, so I leveraged myself out, and then I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do with myself and my life. And as I'm having these ahas about leadership.
Midlife crises in your 20s?
Yeah, right? Yeah, right. Much longer than that. But, and I don't mind saying my age. I'm 46. I always forget how old I am, but I know, right? 46 years old.
That out, I think.
Yeah. But I realized like there are two companies that I've made really good connections with at this point in my career, and I would work for one of them if they would hire me. And so I went to both of them and I said, to one CEO, I said, hey, if there's a spot for me, I'd love to come work for you. And then I also went to Leo Pareja, who was at the time the chief strategy officer for EXP. And I went to Leo and I said, Leo, one day you're going to be CEO of EXP. Glenn is great, but I know like he's a founder. I think he wants to live that founder life, at least in my mind. I envision that eventually. And I said, when you're CEO, I'd love to come work for you and do some of the things I see you doing now. I feel like we know a lot of the same people. And so they both were like, okay, let's think about this, because neither of them were actively hiring.
Yeah. Well, they didn't even have a role identified, right?
Right. Yeah. And neither did I. And so literally weeks later, not even a month later, they're both telling me, and we're both talking, and they're both thinking about building roles for me. And actually Leo becomes the CEO and then builds a role for me and makes me an offer to come and be the VP of industry relations. So did you have to choose between the two offers? Is that how it shook down? Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say kind of, yeah, I did. And in fact, I was at dinner with both sides not long ago, and they said to our CMO, Wendy, we tried to hire Kendall. You guys beat us to the punch. Which is really like awkward and great at the same time. What were you looking for?
What was the most important thing you wanted to be able to do that you felt like this new role fulfilled?
I wanted to work for the right leader.
Okay.
Which is why I only offered it to the two organizations that I was interested in.
And so this role that they created for you now, like what are you focused on daily, and what about that fulfills you?
Yeah, so when I was originally hired, it was VP of Industry Relations, and I think Leo saw a real opportunity because I have been one of, I'll say, a small handful in the industry that has been following the litigation that resulted in the most recent NAR settlement. And I'd been on stages speaking about it publicly, educating about it, trying to prepare the industry because I knew it was probably not going to go the way that most people expected it to go. And so he wanted me to come in and help educate agents and help the company adjust and make policy and be a voice and a face that could be attached to leadership and some sort of North Star in the industry, which was really great. I was honored to do that, and I got to touch a lot of lives and impact a lot of agents and leaders and help them transition and understand like what was really happening.
Sure.
And so we did that, and then
was the genesis of the role, do you think, kind of a perfect storm because of the NAR settlement and knowing that there might be a need here to really kind of get in front of it and have somebody to help educate?
I think he leveraged that skill set that I had for sure.
Yep.
But my original goal, and I think his too, because he's always done this with me since the beginning, is really to transition into all the partnerships and relationships that we have with outside parties. So my now title is Industry Relations and Strategic Partnerships, and I head up and I lead our, it's called EXP Solutions. So it's really like a marketplace for what we call our trusted providers, our vendors, basically that marketplace where agents can go to solve problems that they have, right, in their business. If they need lead generation, we have a solution. If they need, connections to just vetted vendors. That's what we do. We vet vendors, and then we say, hey, we'll help you market and get to introduce you to our agents, and we help our agents identify their challenges and like, hey, here's a solution to your problem.
Makes a lot of sense.
Business.
Yeah, and I think I can see why you'd be the perfect person to be able to kind of facilitate those, because your negotiation skills come into play again, right?
Oh, I love it. It's like, I am so excited. Well, not just that, it's two parts, right? So I get to negotiate with these trusted providers and get discounts for our agents and good deals and all of that on the one hand. And then on the other hand, I get to leverage my marketing skills, because now I have to help these vendors market to our agents and make sure that they're, again, I'll reference my coach, John Cheplak, that message to market match, like helping them identify what's your UVP, who's your target audience, what are your products that we're selling, and then what are the best channels and best communication mechanisms to inform our agents on that opportunity. And like, I have this whole strategy. Like, I mean, I'm in love with my job right now, because
that's awesome. It's
so stimulating. I'm passionate about it. And I get to, like I said, leverage all these skills that I've acquired over my 20-something year career.
With Tampa Bay Real Producers, we have a laundry list of vendors, right, that serve our platform and work with us and work with a lot of the agents locally here in Tampa Bay.
Yes.
And so if I'm understanding correctly, if like an outside business had an interest in wanting to work with EXP agents, you would be a great contact, right, for them to at least talk to.
I'd probably be the contact for them, to start.
To figure out like what's the best way to maybe create a strategic relationship there, right?
Yes, I'd be the decision maker. Yeah.
There you go. So all partners, this is who you want to talk to. The big dog, Jason, as well as, what's up, J-Mac? You know Kendall Bonner. Of course you do. I wanted to bring up one thing. You brought up your experience with the NAR settlement.
Yeah.
And how you were speaking on stages about that. I wanted to just get a thought from you on, like, if there was one big misconception that you feel like is out there about the settlement or the effects of the settlement, what would you hit on there?
I would say the thing I want agents, actually the problem I see right now is a lot of agents think that somehow they need to coach their clients when they're as a buyer's agent. You need to tell your buyers or coach your buyers, or your buyers need to somehow tell you to only show them houses where comp is being offered. And that is specifically addressed in the NAR settlement, that we are required not to do that. We're furthering the challenge that they originally one of the original challenges in the first place was steering, right? Was that agents were only showing certain houses based on compensation.
And they want to get away from that.
And they wanted to get away from that. And so I would say to buyers agents out there, show all the houses. Show them all. Doesn't matter. You don't need to call the listing agent to find out if they're offering compensation. Just show the house. And this the skill I tell everyone is going to be the most valuable skill in the industry going forward is your negotiation skills. And then you do everything you can. And now you have commission is actually another negotiation lever that you get to play with. And sometimes to the buyer's advantage, actually. In the conversation with the listing agent and the seller. And, I have some agents in some markets, they're actually making more money as a result of this new format or this new shift.
Because they have more control, right?
Because they have more control over their own business, right? And I'm not talking about listing agents, I'm talking about buyer's agents.
Right.
And, so buyer's agents, don't be afraid. The buyer agency agreement or the buyer brokerage agreement, whatever, transaction broker, whatever, relationship you have with the customer, don't be afraid of that. Get educated on it, understand it, get better at explaining it. And customers eventually, I think all buyers eventually will also see the value in it because it gives them some agency. The reality is most buyers didn't know what their agents were being paid until they saw it on the settlement statement 2 or 3 days before closing.
Right.
And,
full disclosure is much better.
Yeah, this is more transparent.
Yep. Good advice. And there is some fear, I think, out there still about that. And so I think the ability to embrace it, which is something I told you off camera, we've been talking a lot about in that mastermind that we've been running, how to make sure that your people are actually embracing it rather than,
and I will say,
operating out of a mode of panic.
Yeah. And I will say, brokers, if you are encouraging your agents not to show homes, because you think the seller or the listing agent is not offering compensation, you are setting yourself up to be sued.
Sounds like a violation.
It's absolutely a violation. So
Doesn't-
don't do it.
Doesn't sound very customer centric.
No,
that's for
it
sure.
doesn't. It's not. I
Well,
agree.
unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I want to give a couple quick thoughts on the personal side for people, again, to get to know you a little bit, some rapid fire questions. So when you are just hanging out with the family,
Yes.
what's one thing you love to do?
We are movie watchers. So we love, like, the four of us, because we have 2 kids, and my husband and I, we will, like, the other night we watched, what is it, the new Alien movie? Like, is it Romulus or something? Like,
I'm totally not. I have no idea about
my kids
the alien
are older.
scenes and the horror movies. It's
Yeah, don't do that.
not our game yet.
No, yeah, you're Disney.
Do you have a favorite movie,
A favorite movie? No.
Not one.
Not favorite.
Okay.
No. I mean, like Braveheart. I love Braveheart. I would watch that over and over again. Freedom.
Whenever someone
yes.
mentions Braveheart, someone's got to yell freedom. It's part of the DNA.
Yeah.
Do you
Got
have
something
a
like that.
favorite book or author, seminar that you ever attended that you feel like has really made a huge impact on you?
Yes. I have lots of books that I've read that actually have made impact. And every time I teach, I always drop several. But the one I think that real estate agents, especially if you're a listing agent or a buyer's agent now with the way the new model is, it's a business book that has nothing to do with real estate. But it's about sales, and it's called Spin Selling, SPIN, which is an acronym, which I'm known for those. By Neil Rackham. It's about big sales, right? So, like, some people think of sales and they're like, oh, it's selling you a Verizon phone, selling you sunglasses, right? Couple $100, $1,000, whatever. This is for big ticket item sales, and it's a strategy for how to be a better salesperson, better negotiator,
Love
all
it.
of that. So that I would recommend that book.
I've heard of it. I actually have not read it myself, but now it's on my list again. So Spin
Yeah,
Selling.
it's very
I like it.
academic.
It's okay. We need to be smarter one of these days.
And it's got one of my favorite words in it, Entelechy, which I had to look up. I had to ask Google how to pronounce it. And
I never even heard of it before.
nobody
so.
has. And it means to make what is potential actual. So I jokingly say
like
it's
that.
making dreams come true.
See, that's why you're a great communicator, Kendall. You can take a complex idea and make it simple.
That's right. I love that.
That's the way to
Thank
do
you.
it.
Thank
Spin
you.
Selling, everybody.
Yes.
All right. Here's my last question for you. I call it a legacy question. When the day does come, even though you're still in your 20s now and you got a long life to live, God willing, when you sit on that rocking chair and you think back to what you'd want to be most remembered for and what's most important to you in terms of your legacy, what do you think that would be?
You know, I would say it would be what my mom gave to me, right? Which is a legacy of wisdom and leadership and contribution. I would want people to say, like, man, Kendall didn't hold anything back. She always gave, and she gave freely and without expectation. And, and I hope my kids always know, and my husband, of course, too, that they are loved unconditionally. And I'm grateful for them.
Very cool. Well, Kendall, it was an honor to have you here. I feel like we should have had you on years ago since we've known each other for a while now, but I'm grateful to have you here and be able to hear your story in a little bit more detail. There's some stuff that I didn't even know about your story that we got to dive into here today.
Yeah, thank you.
If somebody wanted to reach out to you just to pick your brain a little bit more, maybe as an agent or even as a vendor who would love to talk to you about the EXP relationships, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so I mean, you can go to kendallbonner.com, KENDALLBONNER.com, and there you'll find my link tree, which, links out to emails, social media. Send me a direct message, and I'm happy to connect and happy to help. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate you.
Awesome. It's good to have you here for sure.
Thank you.
So we want to end, as we do every episode, with a call to action. And if you took the time to watch this live on YouTube or any of our platforms, or you're listening to this on any of your favorite podcast platforms, if you don't already subscribe, by the way, to it, just click the little button below. That way you'll be notified every time a new episode drops, which is weekly. We drop a new episode every Friday. But what is one action step that you can take from our conversation today with Kendall that will allow you to propel yourself forward personally or professionally. Maybe it's as simple as picking up Spin Selling and making that something that you need to read over the next 30 days. Or maybe you need to have a conversation with Kendall. You're a vendor out there who would love to work more with EXP agents, and there's a program in place that EXP has to vet you guys and make sure that there's a great synergy there. That might be the step you have to take. Or maybe you're an agent who would just like to learn a little bit more about the way that Kendall has built her business, or you admire some of the layers of the organization that she's been able to establish, and you want to pick her brain a little bit more about that, or emulate some of the stuff that she's done on the speaking circuits out there. Take action, right? Have a conversation, make a phone call, send a text, do something that's going to propel you forward. And that way, the time that you invested in listening to this will result into the objective of the show, which is to help you grow your business and your personal situation day in and day out. So if you don't already know our program, you can follow us, of course, at TampaBayRealProducers.com or at TopProducersNation.com to learn more about how to be able to become a top producer in your desired market. So we'll see you on the next episode of the Tampa Bay Real Producers Podcast. Later.
Hey, it's Jared with the Rutherford Group, Keller Williams Realty, and we're here at Whiskey Cake in Tampa, and we're at a Real Producers event. And today's panel was on how to run a consistent business in any market. I love Real Producers because it allows agents across the Tampa Bay area come together and collaborate best practices to serve our clients and our teams.